Welcome. Welcome to our session this morning. I see most of you are logging in. We're getting into the room. So welcome, welcome. We're very excited to talk to you today about the expansion and modification application. We will be talking about that and navigating through the portal to show you exactly what you need to know to have a successful expansion modification application come April. So thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to go ahead and jump right in. My name is Teresa McGeehan. I am on the TIA team. Most of what I do involves helping districts build the valid and reliable and sustainable local designation systems for purposes of TIA. So all things system planning. So I will be talking you through the expansion modification application today. We also have other team members on the call who will be sharing some other information later in this presentation, as well as answering some questions in the background. This is a webinar, so that means it's being recorded. It will be uploaded into the district share file, so that you will be able to hear it and see it and share it after this, as soon as it's posted after this presentation ends. You will not be seen even though it's being recorded. All you will see will be the slides and then hear the voiceover from me. There also is a disabled chat function. However, if you have a question, you can use the Q&A function instead and put your question in there. And we have people on the call who will hopefully be able to answer your question. In some cases, questions that are very specific to a district's context, we will say to go ahead and email the TIA inbox so we can get that question over to the expert who would be the best person to answer it. So if we can answer it now, we will. And if not, we may ask you to email your question to the inbox. Our objectives for this morning, one, understand how to access the portal. The application is on a portal. Two, understand how to navigate the various tabs and which questions unlock which tabs. And then finally, be able to access and use the resources we have available so that you can be as successful as possible in your expansion modification application. Our agenda will have some time to just go over the objectives, which we already did. We're going to talk about the impact of TIA. We're going to go over the expansion modification tab and the weighting tab. Those are two very important tabs. We'll also cover additional tabs that might be important for you to do, and then we'll have resources and next steps for you. So first, we're going to talk about the impact of TIA in Texas. So we're really, really happy that in 24-25, over $481 million went out in allotment funds. This is real money going to real districts and real teachers across the state. And that means roughly about more than 42,000 teachers were designated. And that translates to 665 districts that received funds. We also can look at it in terms of how many districts are participating. So back when TIA started, we had 35 districts. This was in 2020. Now, fast forward 5 years, we have 809 school districts participating in TIA, which is just amazing growth over such a short time. That is about 65% of the school districts in Texas are currently participating in TIA. We also are very proud that we have 475 rural districts, which is about 64% of all the rural districts that are also participating in TIA. So just enormous growth. Thanks to you all for being part of this and for doing the great work to recognize our best and most talented teachers. So we're really happy about that. And it appears that it's working. So some early data, you can look at this chart here. The teal colored on the left-hand side of each one of these bars, it represents designated teachers, and the orange are the non-designated teachers. And what we're looking at is retention rates. So you can see the retention rate of designated teachers is higher than the retention rate of non-designated teachers, which is great. That's what we wanted. One of the main goals of TIA was to retain teachers, recruit, reward, and retain. And that retain piece you can see right here on this slide is working. So we're really happy about that. That means our best, most effective teachers are being retained at higher rates, which is good for everybody. It's good for the teachers and it's good for the districts. So we'll do a quick poll just to see where everyone is. A lot of people on this call can be in completely different states of where you are with how ready you are to submit your expansion modification application. Maybe today is the very first step. You hadn't even thought about it yet. Maybe you've done some initial work. Maybe you've already done stakeholder engagement. Maybe you're nearly there. Maybe you're ready to submit. You could click submit right now if you wanted to. So just a quick poll and to see where you are. If you would take a moment and let us know where you are, your district is with respect to your expansion modification application. Okay, I'm seeing some answers coming in. Keep them coming. I'll give you another few seconds to enter the poll, and then we will close it for you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And you can see we have a mix of just about everybody. Some are in the very first step. Some are doing just in the initial stages. Some are ready. We have four people who are ready to submit right now. Yay, maybe I should let y'all lead this webinar. That's outstanding. So most people are somewhere in the middle, and that is great. Just helpful to know who we have in the room. So thank you for participating in that poll. So, we were going to talk about the purpose of the expansion modification. Why do we have this thing called an expansion modification application? Well, the idea is to provide districts every year a chance to modify their system. Once they've gone through it, there may be something that they want to change or tweak or add, especially adding teachers. We really want to have over time, districts include all of their teachers as eligible teachers in the TIA system. So over time, we really want to make sure we get there. So each year you can add a few more teaching assignments, a few more teaching assignments, and so forth, so that over time you will be able to include all of your teachers. They will be eligible to earn the designation. So it's really a chance to expand every year, but also modify if something needs to be changed. Tweaked, you want to change something wasn't working, you want to change out an assessment, something like that. So it really is to be able to give districts a chance to modify every year and also expand every year. Here's some things you can do as part of an expansion modification. You can add new eligible teaching categories. That's number one, right? We really want districts to add as many new teaching categories as possible over time. You also can combine or remove teaching categories if some of them are duplicative. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You can change assessments. You can change your teacher observation rubric that you're using. Maybe you're using Danielson and you want to switch to Marzano, or you're using Marzano and you want to switch to T-tests. You can do that. You can also add additional campuses. Some districts started out with just a few campuses and they want to add campuses over time. Other districts started out with all campuses eligible. That just depends on what your district is doing, and you also can revise your spending plan. So these are all things you can do via an expansion modification. Some are required, so you can see they're on the left. If you're doing anything on that required side, it means you're required to do an expansion modification application in order to affect those changes. Things like adding or removing teaching categories, changing your observation rubric, changing out your assessments, and so forth. And then there's other things you can change on your own at the local level that do not require you to submit an expansion modification, such as removing your optional components or adding an optional component. You're allowed to do that. That is not part of the system. That's not something that is scored. That's why it's optional. So you can change those at your will without doing an application. Same with weighting. Maybe your system had 50% teacher observation and 50% student growth, and you want to change it to 60-40, for example. You can do that. So there's several things there you can refer to, whether you are required to do an expansion modification to make those changes or whether you can make them on your own. A quick word: if you're making changes that are not required to submit an application, really want to make sure you have strong stakeholder engagement around what you're changing and why, so that your stakeholders know what's being changed and why, and they're not surprised. So now we're going to talk about the online portal. So this application is available only through the online portal. If you have done an expansion modification application in the past, not last year, but prior to that, all the applications were actually in Excel. We have changed that. So starting last year, all applications are actually in an online portal, which we're going to go over today. It is now live right now. Only one person per district has the direct access to that. Who is whoever your primary account holder is for the online portal. By the way, this portal is the same portal you use for data submission. So if your district has submitted data in the online portal, now the application is also in that portal. So it's the same portal. So whoever is your main portal person, emails went out with that information on December 1st. If any questions about the portal, there's a great FAQ document. This is a live link. You'll have this deck. You can click on that later. You also can find it on the TIA website. So what if you don't know who your primary account holder is for the online portal, or if it's changed, maybe the person retired or moved away or something like that? If you're not sure, just let us know. We will let you know who we have on file as your online primary account holder, and just email us at tia@tea.texas.gov. There are required tabs that are statutory, and statutory means it is required by statute to pass these things or for your application to be accepted. Those are the ones listed there: the waiting tab, the eligible teacher tab, eligible campuses tab, teacher observation tab. If you're making changes to it, if you're not changing anything, then you don't have to do that. It'll just, in fact, it'll be locked for you. I'll show you that in a second. All applicable student growth measure tabs if you're changing them. So if you're not changing any of those, you don't have to complete them. And then spending tab if you're making changes. So those are the ones that must be at full readiness in order for your application to be accepted. There also is an additional tab on this application that's not statutory per se, but it is required. And in fact, it actually is kind of the gatekeeper, if you will, of all the application because it unlocks the tabs you need to complete and it will leave locked the tabs you don't need to complete, and that is the expansion modification tab itself, and we will go through that shortly. So that brings us to a tour of the online portal. So first of all, we're going to go over some of the general tabs, and I'm going to show you that in the portal itself. Now, one thing about the portal, which is great, it logs you out fairly quickly, and that's okay. Just log yourself back in. It's for security. It's a good thing. It doesn't take a second to log back in. So that'll probably happen to me many times in this presentation, and that's okay because it'll probably happen to you too. And so no worries. So here's the welcome page. Obviously, when you log in, it won't say welcome testing district 6. It'll say welcome your district name. This is a testing one. And you can see several things on this welcome tab. First, it has a little quick at a glance of which tabs have been completed and which tabs have not been completed. So you can see the district information tab. This district has not done that yet. They've done their expansion modification tab. They've done their waiting tab and so forth. So you can tell at a glance where your district is and the percent completion by going to this welcome tab. Then there's a reference file tab. Over here, all these tabs on the left are ones you'll notice some are locked. We'll talk about that in a second. Reference tab is really handy. It will have for you what we have on file for you as your current accepted system of record. So if you want to see what your system was in 24-25, you can click on that button. It'll have your system of record already in there for you. It also has the attestations, which are required as part of the application process. If you have a district created rubric, you're not using T-test, you're using some other kind of rubric, it'll be on there for you, as well as the crosswalk that goes with it and spending plan changes. So these are great reference files for you to have. I just wanted to point that out. We also have district information tab. This is just basic information. This is how we know who you are. So this is really important so that we have up-to-date information because sometimes staff changes, there's turnovers, people get promotions, people move. This is like who you are, who are your main contacts, and who do you want us to be the main person. And we're going to ask for 3 different people. So that's information about your district. Then there's an application dashboard. This is just another view of all the tabs required to complete, which ones are finished and which ones are not finished. You can also see which ones are locked. So that means this district is not changing their spending plan. They don't have to do these 2 tabs because stakeholder engagement and district support are not part of the expansion modification application. They are part of a new application. And instead, questions around district support and stakeholder engagement are part of the expansion modification tab itself, which is right here. This is the one where it tells you, let us know what you're doing. What are you doing? Are you changing? Are you expanding? Are you modifying? Both. All of these questions are here for you to answer, and we'll talk about that in a second. But one thing I wanted to point out, this little green icon here means this can be downloaded. So you can download each page now. This is new for this year. If you want to download just this page, you're not finished with the whole application, but you want to keep this or you want to share it with someone else in your district, you can download that using that little green tab. So we are going to, that's the end of the general tab. We're now going to talk about the expansion modification tab. So it looks like this. I showed you really quick what that looks like. It's where there's 2 different parts. One is about adding and removing assignments, teaching assignments, growth measures. There's also questions about, do you want to change your teacher observation rubric? Yes or no? Are you making changes to the spending plan? Yes or no? Those kind of things. So it starts with the yes or no questions. It's like a tree that will then unlock the rest of the questions that you need to answer. And we're going to go through that in just a second. But before we do that, I wanted to point out there's a great resource for how you can plan to include more and more teaching assignments over time. Some districts are not ready right now to include every single teaching assignment they have. They don't feel like they have valid and reliable growth measures for all of their teaching assignments yet, but they want to get there. And so this is a great document you can use. Again, this is a live link, and you can click on this when this is available in share file shortly after this presentation ends. It's just a way to plan for what you want to do going forward. So here, as an example of this district, Maple ISD, this is what they want to do. So they're currently already using TPRI for kindergarten through third grade reading, and they've had valid results. They don't want to change that. That's already in their system. They're good to go. And they're currently using STAR transition tables for fourth through eighth grade reading and math. What they want to change, modify with their expansion application in April, is they want to switch from transition tables to statewide VAM. So they're making a plan to do that. That's going to be part of what they do when they submit their application. They're also been training this year in SLOs all year. They've been piloting SLOs during the school year 25-26, and they're going to add SLOs to their system via this expansion modification application. So all of these teachers here know that they're going to be added. They're not included right now, but they will be included as a part of this expansion modification. And then finally, kindergarten through eight, music, art, and technology, they're not included yet, and they're not going to be included in this application. They're just beginning to explore portfolios because these teachers wanted to use portfolios and based on stakeholder engagement. So they're going to pilot their portfolios in 26-27, and then they plan to add in 27-28. So all these teachers know they're in the pipeline. They're not going to be there right now, but eventually, and this is a small K through 8 district, this is all the teachers that they have. So they have a plan within 3 years to include every single teaching assignment that they have. This is just an example. You can use it to help you plan for how to include what might you do to be able to get there to a place where you include all of your teachers in your system eventually. So now we're going to go back to, before we go into the weighting tab, I want to go back and show you the expansion modification tab. So as you can see, there are questions along the way. Is the district removing any eligible teaching assignments? No, this district is not. Is the district adding teaching assignments? Yes, and so forth. You can see how it asks you if you're adding new eligible teaching assignments and you're using a new growth measure or a new assessment, it will ask you which ones are being added. So this is they're adding SLOs and they're adding a new pretest post-test. Notice how those are what's unlocked. SLOs are unlocked and pretest post-test tab is unlocked because this tab controls that. If they didn't click SLO here, then SLO would be locked. And I can just demonstrate that, unclick that. You have to click all the way through to the end. Click save, and now SLOs are locked because they weren't using them. So I'm going to go back because this district is using SLOs. Click SLO, and that'll be unlocked again. So in other words, this tab unlocks everything else you need. So the next part is, are you changing anything about your currently approved or your currently eligible teachers? So you can add new ones, but you also can change stuff about the teaching assignments you already have. You can make changes if you want. You don't have to. If you are making changes, then it'll give you additional questions according to what you're changing. It asks you if you're going to change your teacher observation rubric, yes or no. This district was no. If I clicked yes, then the teacher observation tab would be unlocked. It asks you if you are removing or adding any new campuses, yes or no. This district already includes all their campuses, so this was a no for them. For you, it might be a yes. And then are you changing your spending plan? This district was not, but you could. And if you clicked yes, then the spending plan tab would be unlocked. I'll just change that so I can show you. Describe what you want to change in your spending plan. I'm just going to put test for now so you can see how this works. If I hit save, now the spending tab is unlocked. So in other words, the expansion modification tab is sort of the nerve center of the whole application. It will tell you what you need to do, which tabs need to be completed, and it will unlock them for you. So that is the expansion modification tab. Next tab we're going to talk about is the weighting tab. The weighting tab is also very important. It's kind of your whole system at a glance. It has all the teacher categories you want to use. It has the teacher observation that you're using and what weight. It has the student growth measure you're using and at what weight. And then includes any optional components that your district chose to include. You don't have to do that. Some districts have none. Some districts have some. For districts that do have optional components, many of them are starting to use student surveys. And so that's what this little icon is here is an example of a student survey that you might want to consider using as an optional component. Totally a local decision and up to you. So the first thing to think about when you think about the weighting tab is the definition of teacher category. So a teacher category is the set of eligible teaching assignments that can all be grouped together into one category. And there's rules around what can be grouped together into one category and what needs to be separated into different categories. So a teacher category is the group of eligible teaching assignments that have two things in common. One, the same teacher observation rubric at the same weight. They're all using t-tests at, say, 50%. And two, the same student growth measure at the same weight. They're all using portfolios at 50%. It includes with pretest, post-test, they have to be using the same assessment. So if you have the same assessment at the same weight, then you can group all those teaching assignments together. A great example is STAR. So some districts put STAR 4 through 8, and then they put STAR for their high school end of year courses, Algebra 1, English 1, English 2. And they put them as two separate categories because they think, well, middle school is one and high school is different. But actually, those should all be one category because they're all using the same growth measure. They're all using STAR in this case, and they're all using the STAR transition tables. So combine things that should be combined into the same category, but you cannot combine things into the same category if they have different assessments. So we're going to show you an example of that. So just look at this for a second. This is one district's weighting tab. They have 6 teaching categories, ranging from first to third grade reading all the way down to sixth through eighth grade science. They're using t-tests for all of them. They're using a teacher observation weight is 60%. They're using MAP for all of them. And the student growth measure is 40%. So is this a correct example? Just think about it for a second. I'm going to show you the answer. And then after that, we're going to have a little quiz. Not a quiz, it's a poll. Is this correct? Hopefully, if you go back to this definition that says if they're using the same assessment at the same weight, they can be combined. They use that definition, then this is not correct because they're all the same. What this should look like is this. All of these things were all using t-tests at 60% and they're all using MAP at 40%. So if you apply this definition, it actually can make your weighting tab much simpler, much easier to understand for your stakeholders, your school board, your teacher, everybody. So make sure you apply that definition of teacher category as you build your weighting tab. Here's another example. Now, this is our little poll. Based on what we just talked about, how many teaching categories should this district have? And I'll give you a hint. It's not 6. So look at that for a few seconds. How many should they have? How many teaching categories, separate individual teaching categories should they have? And we're going to do a poll. Give you about 5 seconds to look at that, and we'll hope you can answer the poll. I see some answers coming through. Great, keep them coming. All right, we're going to go ahead and close that poll for the interest of time. Thank you for those of you who were able to get your vote in. Thank you very much. And oops, I was going to share the results. You guys were star pupils. We definitely have most people picked 4. 4 is the correct answer. And that is because it looks like this. All 3 of the ones using iReady, 60% t-test, 40% iReady, that should have been one category because they all use the same assessment at the same weight. STAR is a separate assessment. That's one by itself. And then portfolios, that's a whole separate student growth measure. That's at 40%. And SLOs, that's a separate growth measure. That's at 40%. So if the student growth measure is different and or the assessment being used is different, it needs to be a separate category. But if the assessment is the same, those should all be grouped together. So hopefully that makes sense. A quick word about when using pretest, post-test. It's very important that districts verify whether those third-party assessments come with expected growth targets or not. So expected growth targets are how you measure your student growth. Did the student meet their expected growth or not? Some tests have expected growth targets for you. Other tests, perfectly fine tests to use, but they do not come with expected growth targets. Instead, the district has to create those expected growth targets locally. So that's very, very important to remember. Luckily, we have a list for that. You can look at this third-party options list. It will tell you examples of ones, and every test is listed and it says whether it contains expected growth targets or not. Some common examples that do set expected growth target: STAR, you can use the transition tables, or progress measure, iReady, MClass for reading only. Note, reading only. MClass does not provide growth targets for math. They only provide growth targets for reading. MAP, Renaissance Star, those are some that do. And then on the other hand, some examples of assessments that do not set expected growth targets are Circle, that's a pre-K test, and Circle K, which is, by the way, the new name for Texas Kia is now Circle K. AP exams, lots of districts use those for their AP teachers, but AP does not set growth targets, and so on. So just keep in mind, and again, MClass for math, they don't set growth targets either. So you have a list. Please do look at that third-party assessment options list to verify, or reach out to the vendor and ask them just to make sure that you are using whether you need to create them at the local level or whether the test itself comes with growth targets. So we're going to just take a quick look at the weighting tab on the portal now that we've done some background. Oh, see, it logged me out. I told you it was going to do that. So no problem. Just log right back in. There we go. All right. Here is the weighting tab. So this is a weighting tab for Test District 6. They are including 4th through 8th grade reading, 4th through 8th grade math, world languages, AP courses. You can see they're using a variety of things. For AP exams, they're using a district-created pretest, district-created growth targets, and the end of your AP exam is the post-test. They're using welding, culinary arts, and agricultural mechanics. Those people are all using portfolios. 4th through 8th grade PEs doing fitnessgram, and so on. So this is just an example of a weighting tab. You will add, if you're adding new categories, you put in the eligible teacher category, the teacher observation rubric and the weight, the growth measure you're using. You can use SLOs, portfolios, VAM, pretest, post-test. Notice if you click pretest, post-test, you have to do more information. What is the pretest? Who sets expected growth? And what is the post-test? And then you do the weight. So this is just an example of what the weighting tab looks like. Notice how some of these already have, this district already had an application on file, right? So that's why they're expanding. This little message here are the ones they already had. I mean, you can't delete it because it's already tied to the eligible teachers tab. And these other down here that don't have the yellow message, those are the new ones that they're adding this year via their expansion application. So you will see some, whatever your current system is, you should get this message about how you can't delete it because it's tied to eligible teachers. And then you'll have the option to just add more. You click on that and you can add as many new teaching categories as you want to. Now, I wonder, as I was talking, I went really fast, but I want to show you something. And this is how, when it comes to the eligible teachers tab. So let's go over to the eligible teachers tab. This is where you will select the service ID that is connected to the teaching, the category that's over here. This is weighted, I mean, it's from the weighting tab. So it kind of, weighting tab will populate on the eligible teachers tab. So here's all your categories that we just said they're using. This is one that it fills in automatically, which is really handy. So this is their 6 categories, and here's what each of their categories are. Now we need to select the service IDs that go with each of these. So that's an example of what you can do. So let's start with 4th through 8th grade math. And I'm going to do, let's go to, you can use these filters that are very, very handy. And I'll show you in category 2, which is 4th through 8th grade math. I'm just going to eligible category number 2. And you can see that that's what is, I already entered this before this meeting. You can just to show you 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade math, category 2, 4th through 8th grade math, it's category 2. So that's what it looks like when you've done it. But when you haven't done it yet, I'm going to show you one I haven't done yet. So I'm going to just remove these filters. I have not done 4th through 8th grade PE. So I'm going to assign for the service IDs that I want to go with 4th through 8th grade PE. So I'm going to go over the filters. I'm going to pick the subject description, which is physical education and health. I'm going to pick the grade levels I want, which is 4th grade, and 5th grade, and 6th grade, and 7th grade, and 8th grade. Hit apply. Okay, now this is all of the possible service IDs that are connected to PE or health. So some of these, I don't want this. I'm not doing health. I'm just doing PE. I'm going to skip down, keep going. And here I see physical Asian grade 4, 5, 6 must be on the next page, 7 and 8. So I'm going to just select the category. So PE is category 6. So fourth grade PE is category 6, and fifth grade PE is category 6. Oops, 6. And that is category 6. And eighth grade is category 6. And I hit save. Now I have assigned the service IDs that I want to category 6. So that is how you assign the service IDs to the category to which they belong. And it's also shows up the filter that you can check. Did I do it right or not? You can check by category number. You can check by content grade level. These filters will be your new best friend. Very, very handy. Now, there's one more thing that's important to do when you're looking at your expansion modification tab. So this district, when they applied, they may have not done things exactly correctly, but this is something we're checking for now. Notice their first two categories, fourth through eighth grade reading, using STAR, transition tables, 40%, 60% t-test, fourth through eighth grade math. These look like they're exactly the same thing, but they're not the same thing because this one is 60% and this one is 40%. And this is a 50-50. If the district wanted to change this, let's say they want to just make them both 60-40 and not have a separate category for math, you can click Edit. I'm going to click Edit, and I'm going to add fourth through eighth grade reading and math, and I'm going to hit Save. And so now I need to delete this category because fourth through eighth grade reading and math are all going to be category 1, and I want to delete this one, but look, it says you cannot delete this, but you can. You have to go back to the Eligible Teachers tab and sort by category 2. And I'm going to change all of these to category 1 because I just put math into category 1. So I'm going to change it to 1, change it to 1, change it to 1. So I have my fourth through eighth grade reading and math all together in the same place. Change that to 1, hit save. So now there's no service IDs tied to category 2 anymore. So when I go back to the weighting tab, it will let me delete category 2, which I don't need because fourth grade math, I just moved up here. So I just wanted to demonstrate, if needed, how you can delete a teaching category. You have to first go to the eligible teacher tab and remove the linkages between those service IDs and a category. So that's how you do that. So again, this is how the eligible teacher tab, the categories are pre-populated from the weighting tab. You select the service IDs, you enter the category number, and you can use those filters. This is just a review of what I just demonstrated in case you want to come back to this and see what the steps are. And here are the steps to combine or delete teacher categories like I just showed you. You have to go to the eligible teacher tab first, search for that category, change all the references to the new category. Then after you click save, you can go back and delete it off of the weighting tab. So just a heads up about how the eligible teacher tab works. There's also an eligible campuses tab. So testing District 6 doesn't have a lot of campuses. You will have your real campuses that will pop up on that eligible campuses tab. And you can decide which ones you want to add. If you want to add more, you want to, whatever you want to do with your eligible campuses. Be sure to check to make sure that you look through all the campuses that are assigned to your district. Sometimes if there's a DIAP or a JJAP that's assigned to your district that you actually didn't mean to include in your system. Maybe you do want to include in your system, but just check all that. All districts can include their campuses if they want to, or they can include some of the campuses if they want to. That's a local decision, and you will make those choices on the eligible campuses tab. Then there's a teacher observation tab. So if you're changing your teacher observation, then you will complete the teacher observation tab. Again, there's many different kinds of teacher observation rubrics you can use. It will also ask you questions about how you go about calibrating your appraisers, how often do you calibrate your appraisers, things like that. What happens when you find skew in your data? What do you do about that? Those kinds of things are things you'll answer on the teacher observation tab. If you're not making any changes to your teacher observation, this will be locked for you and you won't need to complete it. Just FYI, if you are making changes, that's what's on that tab. There are also the student growth tabs. Again, you'll only have to complete the ones that you're actually changing. If you're not changing any of them, you don't have to complete them. They will be locked. And what controls whether it's locked or not is that expansion modification tab. You do have four options for student growth measures: pretest, post-test, SLOs, portfolios, or VAM. And it will be unlocked based on the eligible expansion modification tab. There's also a spending tab. If you're making changes to your spending plan, then the spending tab will be unlocked and you can go in there and answer questions about your spending tab. There's also great information about the spending tab. Just as a quick review, we do have what we call that 90-10 split. So 90% of the teacher incentive allotment funds must go to teacher compensation, and 10% can be retained by the district for district support of TIA. Quick caveat: support of TIA has to be specific. It can't just be general support or admin support. That would not be something that would pass. And not meet full readiness. It needs to be something specific, like we are paying for a specific assessment to include this new eligible teaching assignment, or we're going to use the 10% to help fund a TIA coordinator to help the smooth rollout and continuous improvement of our TIA system at our district. Things like that. Specific information of how you're going to support TIA. Then there's information about other parts of your spending plan. Another key point is if you're not forwarding the money to a teacher who leaves. So let's just say your plan says if a teacher leaves the district before payout, your plan is not to forward the money to that teacher. You can forward it or not, but just in case your district doesn't, then you have to go back up and still make sure that 90-10 rule. So it's statutory if you're not forwarding the funds. So that is a spending plan. There's great information out there. There's a really good webinar and it's already recorded and in the share file. If you want any more information about spending, I highly encourage you to watch the spending tab webinar. It gives you lots of examples as well as exemplar and sample spending plan just for you to get an idea of what else is out there. How can I do this maybe in a different way? What are other districts doing? So if you're interested in that, I highly recommend you watch the spending tab webinar. Now we'll talk a little bit about the scoring rubric. So there is a rubric that tells you exactly how we are scoring the application. This is literally what the team of people who score applications, they use this exact thing. So we're hopefully being as transparent as possible about what is going to be looked for and how we're going to score your application. So I highly recommend you use that resource. It's also in the district share file. It's on the TIA website. It's linked in this presentation. You can get to it a bunch of different ways, but it really goes through and lets you know for each particular question, what does full readiness look like? What do you have to have in order for it to be scored at full readiness? So we're going to practice this just a little bit. We're going to look at the full readiness criteria for the pretest post-test tab, option 1, question 1. So option 1 of pretest post-test, there's 4 different ways of doing pretest post-test. We have so many options. One option is a third-party test that has third-party growth targets and a third-party post-test. So everything all the way. Option 2 is a third-party pretest and a third-party post-test, but with district-created growth targets. So that would be like your ICEV exams, your AP exams, Circle, things like that, things that don't have. That's option 2. Option 3 is a district-created pretest, district-created growth targets, and district-created post-test, so district all the way. And option 4 is a blend with a district pretest, but a third-party post-test. So there's lots of different ways. But for this presentation, we're just going to look at option 1, which is the third-party pretest, third-party growth targets, third-party post-test, question 1. And this is what it looks like. The scoring rubric asks that the district explain how each assessment aligns to the standards and the content covered in each respective course, and that they provide answers for all assessments used. So for this example, Marigold ISD, option 1, they're using Renaissance Star for some of their teaching assignments. They're using M-Class Reading, and they're using STAR. Those are the only assessments that they're using that qualify as that option 1. And here's their answer. So I'm going to give you a minute to read their answer about here, what they said. I'm going to keep in mind what we're looking for. They explain how it aligns to the standard of content, and they answer questions for all assessments used. So I'll give you just a minute, and I'm going to give you a poll about whether this would meet full readiness or not. Okay, hopefully that's enough time for you to have thought about this a little bit. The answer on this one, will it meet full readiness? You're going to let me know yes or no. Does Marigold ISD meet full readiness, yes or no? Great. Lots of people on this one. Yay. All right, last 3 seconds to get your answer in. Okay. So the vast majority of you, 80%, said no, it does not, and that is the correct answer. And I will show you why. It's because they did not answer any questions about M-class reading. Remember, they have to have answers for all of the assessments used. They had a strong answer for Renaissance Star. They had a strong answer for Star. They just didn't answer for M-class. And that can happen easily. You're going too fast. Something happens when you're typing that thing. There's a fire drill or whatever. But this is why using the scoring rubric will really help you. You can go back and use that, read what you wrote, look at the rubric, and see whether you would give yourself full readiness or not on that question. Then you can catch things like, oh, you know what? We forgot to do the M class answer. And then you can fix it, which is exactly what this district did. They fixed it. Now they added an answer for M class reading that explains why they're using it, explains how to align to the TEKS, it explains the growth targets are valid. Now they have answers for all three, and this would be full readiness. So that you can fix things. I highly encourage you to use the scoring rubric, and it has detailed bullets for every single question, spending tab questions, waiting tab questions, pretest, everything. So please go ahead and use that. And hopefully you'll be able to catch some things that maybe you might have inadvertently left off of your application. So that's that. There's also a new tab. We're very excited to have an enhanced TIA tab. You may have seen that on there. We have Lariah from our team, who is one of the people on our spending team within the TIA team, and she is here today, lucky for us, to tell you all about the enhanced TIA. So I'll turn it over to you, Lariah.
Thank you, Teresa, and good morning, everyone. I just want to take a moment to introduce the new Enhanced TIA application, which has been added to the portal. All users are going to see that currently as a lock tab on their left-hand menu. And so, as a reminder, Enhanced TIA is a new designation that's available to districts that have established a strategic compensation system based on performance. So this designation unlocks an additional 10% in TIA funds for supporting these strategic compensation systems. As I mentioned, the Enhanced TIA tab is visible under the District Support tab in the portal, but it's currently locked for all users. If your district isn't pursuing Enhanced TIA designation at this time, you can ignore this tab. It won't affect your application. If your district submitted a letter of intent for enhanced TIA this fall, you'll gain access in early February. So please just keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that the application deadline will be April 15th, 2026, just like the TIA application. And then districts who submitted a letter of intent for enhanced TIA should also keep an eye out for our application training session that'll be on February 11th. If you're wondering if enhanced or applying for enhanced TIA designation makes sense for your district, this visual highlights the key criteria for having an HB2 compliant strategic compensation system. So those include universal teacher eligibility for TIA designation, performance-based teacher and campus administrator compensation, no across-the-board salary increases, and strategic staffing that places highly effective teachers at high-needs campuses. So if your district uses an HB2 compliant strategic compensation system or plans to implement one by the 2026-27 school year, please email us at tia@tea.texas.gov for more information about enhanced TIA. And then finally, if you want to learn more about building an HB2 compliant strategic compensation system, don't miss this opportunity to attend this webinar on January 28th that's hosted by the Center for Strategic Compensation. I'll hang out and answer any questions that are posed in the chat, but otherwise I'll transition it back to Teresa to go over next steps.
Thanks, Laura. So we do have some resources and next steps for you. Next step, engage stakeholders and complete your system planning. So we really want to make sure that as you plan for your expansion and or modification for your current system, that you're engaging stakeholders and you have a plan first before you start trying to fill out the application. You really kind of need to have your plan in place first, and then the application is you explaining what your plan is. So the first step would be to engage those stakeholders and complete your planning. Next step, access the portal application. Do make sure you're able to access it and you can log on. Complete all the required tabs. That'll be different required tabs for different districts, depending on what your district is actually changing versus not changing. So whatever's required for your district, go ahead and complete all those required tabs. And of course, submit the application. It is required to be submitted by April 15th. That's the deadline, 11:59 p.m. Um, One quick note, if you are to make an application or submit early, let's say you're ready today, you can, or maybe you want to submit it March 1st, and then on April 1st, you thought, you know what, we need to change something else. We want to change this new thing or something else happened. You can go back and change it and make edits to your portal, even after you've submitted, up until the deadline. After April 15th, you cannot make any more changes. That is your system. That's what will be scored. If it is accepted, that's what you will implement in the next year. So, just FYI, once you hit submit, if you forgot something that's before April 15th, you are allowed to go back in and change things to make it to be the best version of what your system is possible. But just note that you can't make any changes once the final deadline has passed. And then I do have a survey for you. I would love for you to take, and then have one more slide for you after that. But I do want to ask you to take a survey. It's a quick, about 2-minute survey. Clover's going to drop that in the chat for you. It really makes our work a lot better when we hear from you about what works well, what was meaningful, what was helpful, things like that. Any comments you have about this webinar would be really, really helpful. I personally will make sure I read every single one and always learn a lot from your comments. So please do take about 2 minutes to take the survey for us. We'll put it in the chat and it should be relatively quick. Really would help you to take that. I'm going to pause just for a second to get you guys at least logged onto the survey so you can take it. It shouldn't be more than 2 minutes. Hopefully you guys have been able to access the survey. While you're doing that, I want to go over one last resource slide. So we have many, many resources to help districts. Our goal is that every single district has an accepted expansion modification and all of you are able to expand your system successfully. So to that end, we have added quite a bit of support that you may or may not be aware of just in the last year or so. One is significant support available at all ESCs. So all 20 ESCs have specific dedicated staff exclusively to help districts with TIA per se. So that's great. If you don't know who your person is in your ESC, who is your TIA person or people, there is a list of the main contact. Again, this is a live link. When you get this deck, you can click on it. You also can find that list on the TIA website. And they will give you all kinds of help and support to do make sure expansion modification application is as successful as possible, including they can review your application for you before you submit it to kind of see if there's anything that stands out to them as something you might want to change or fix before hitting submit. Do recommend that if you do want that review, for them to review your application for you and give you feedback, that you get that to them by March 1st so they can make sure they have time to review, give you feedback, and then you have time to implement the feedback all before April 15th. If we have an ESC that gets 100 applications at 10 p.m. on April 15th, likely they're not going to be able to give any feedback. So it is a great service. Do reach out to your ESC. They're there to help you. We also have specialized hubs, which are also ESCs. In addition to the general support for TIA, there's specialized support specifically for SLOs and portfolios. That's out of Region 1, for rural districts out of Regions 9 and 15. For data processes, that's out of Region 18, and then stakeholder engagement support out of Region 20. So if you have some questions about those or want to dig more deeply into those areas, highly recommend you reach out to those hubs. They all have websites and lots of resources for you as well, some of which are turnkey things you can just use, which would be very helpful. We also have office hours. So we have monthly office hours, and those are just what they sound like. It's a time for districts to come and just ask any questions they want. We have our full team there available to answer any questions that might come out. It's not a presentation. There's not a deck. It's not a whole big thing. It's literally just a time for you to come and ask any questions that you have. A lot of times district like going to those because they can hear what questions other districts have, and then that spurs their thinking. So it's a really productive time. I highly encourage you to come to our office hours if you haven't already. And then finally, the application resources. We went through some of those today. The scoring rubric, recommend you use that, read your answers, and use the rubric to see whether you would give yourself a full readiness or not. Application exemplar answers. We didn't go over that today, but that's a live link. You can see what does an exemplar answer look like for teacher observation part D, number 3, or whatever. All of the questions have exemplar answers that you can look at to get some ideas of what a really strong answer could look like. So I highly recommend you look at that resource as well. And then the planning for eligible teaching assignment document. I did go through that one earlier. That was the one where the district was planning over time to include all of their teaching assignments, even though they don't include all of their teaching assignments yet. They have a plan to do so within 3 years. So highly recommend you use that as well. So those are just some additional resources that we have for you to use. Again, we're here to help. Your ESTs are here to help. We're really glad that you were here today. If you haven't yet had a chance to take the survey, please do take the survey. I will look forward to seeing all the feedback that you have for me. And that is all that we have today for you. Thank you so much for your time. You will get 9 minutes back of your day. We really appreciate you and good luck to everyone. Bye bye.